Welcome back to the Rebel's Edge. It is August 12th, and Pete and I are going to be bringing the heat on a bunch of stocks and who's going to be the winner of the NCAA football championship in 2025. We have the answer here on the Rebel's Edge. Bang!
We are off. We are off. We're the Rebel's Edge.
That's right. The Rebel's Edge.
Yeah.
And don't forget, we've written our new book, the Smart What? Follow the Smart Money. No, that's the previous book. The new book. I could go through 5 of these, by the way, folks, because that's how many we've written. But the new book is It's Not an Option.
Yep.
And it is not an option to trade options instead of stock. Imagine last week, Pete, for the poor folks who all of a sudden saw a 1,000-point decline in the Dow last Monday, a week ago, only to see the market up almost that much on Friday last week. I mean, if you're trading stocks, folks, you could get whipsawed like crazy. With options, you knew exactly what your risks were when you entered that trade. It's not like stocks where all of a sudden market's down 4% and your stock's down 12%, like some of the big stocks were. I mean, NVIDIA was below 100. Apple was below 200. If you didn't get shaken out on that, on the stock move, well, congratulations, but you don't have much discipline. On the other hand, with the option, you basically defined your risk on entry. That's why it's not an option to just trade stocks. You can go to that website, still claim the book. The book is free. Shipping will cost you, I think, under $10.
Yeah.
But anyway, Pete, how are you doing today?
I'm doing great. I had a really great weekend. My son was the MVP of polo cross, so that was pretty cool. If people don't know what that is, it's a growing sport in the United States, but it's a monster sport down in Australia and South Africa. And basically it's polo, except for you've got a lacrosse stick and a ball, and you go back and forth with 3 different groups of horses against one another. It's fun, man. It's scary. It can be dangerous, but it's an incredible thing, and it was really, really fun to watch that. That was a fun part of the weekend.
Make sure you give Cole my best wishes for that fantastic MVP. Most valuable player, folks, anytime you're doing that and there's more than 2 of you on the field, that's pretty impressive.
Yeah.
Minnesota has what, Pete, 50 teams?
I think it's something like that. There's 3,000 in Australia. There's another 3,000 or thereabouts in South Africa. They go back and forth who's the big daddy of this whole thing. But either way, they're both amazing. And the U.S. is starting to make a pretty nice move, but it's a long way from 3,000, that's for sure. But it's a lot of fun. It's an incredible sport.
And he was picking up some tips in Australia just a couple weeks ago, right?
He was. Matter of fact, he rides an Australian born and raised horse that was shipped over here to the U.S. So his name is Teak, and he's a heck of a horse, I can tell you that.
Well, make sure you check out Polo Cross, folks. It's an up-and-coming sport, and it's pretty cool.
Yeah.
All right, Macro Minute. Let's kick it off, Pete. I'm going to say Justin Trudeau is doing what he usually does, and that is ruining Canada. What is he ruining now? Well, the construction market in Canada. In the United States, of course, our construction has recovered, and we're seeing people with mortgage rates going down. People are applying for mortgages more frequently right now. In other words, that's all on an upswing. In Canada, not so. Building permits, Pete, down almost 14%, month over month. We're not talking year over year, month over month. And June, it was expected to actually be up 5.5%, and it's down 13.9%. This is just horrible. You got to feel that Canada is tired of this commie running their economy, Pete. But that's my macro minute.
All right, I'm going to jump on something that we all know. Anytime there's data out there, it really does matter. It always matters. It's always mattered in the past, but now it's up to a next level of mattering. Of course, the Fed is always monitoring absolutely everything. We got CPI coming on Wednesday. That's going to be big. Thursday, we got retail sales. I think those are going to be pretty market moving events. Once again, we know what we saw last week and all the craziness that we had throughout the week. As you said, almost a completely full recovery, however, but an unbelievable ride. And I think it's pretty amazing how much the data does really matter these days. And it's something I think everybody should be paying attention to.
Absolutely, they should, and hopefully they are, Pete.
Yeah.
All right, let's dive into fantastic futures. What's weird, Pete, is as Bitcoin was getting hit last week, and remember, just one of the many things that you could have traded with options instead of futures. Bitcoin was down hard, traded beneath 50,000 Monday last week, made a nice recovery, went into the 60s, and this week is down again, not as hard, of course, but is down. Meanwhile, Pete, I've got Ethereum trading up over 4%. So I'd say the Ethereum futures are my fantastic future today.
Yeah, absolutely. And I would say this, just to piggyback for 1 second on what you were talking about there. If you are interested in Bitcoin and that whole world, all you got to do, take a chart and look what the relationship is with Coinbase. When you look at that, you're going to be kind of shocked because they're exact mirror images of each other. And I think that's another way that people can attack something if they want to. I was in Coinbase not too many weeks ago. It's been an incredible run in terms of how it moves along right there with Bitcoin. All that being said, volatility is really important, John. We had a spike. Everybody said, oh my goodness, 65, then it was 50, then it was 40, then it was 30, then it was in the 20s. Now we're below that and we're in the 19s. Now I heard a lot of folks who have no clue on life that, oh, you know what, this is going to stick for a while. Oh, really? Huh. So you think we're going to hang around up there in a 50 VIX? It's not going to happen. It'll hold for a little while, maybe, and it didn't even do that this time. We are all the way back to that area that we came from, John. Call it 15 to 19. That's kind of where I think we're going to be very, very soon. We're pretty close, sitting right at 19 right now for the VIX. So just keep an eye on that and understand when you get that VIX really high, it only lasts for a very select amount of time. But, you know, it could be a week or more, but not much more than that because the markets just don't do that.
That's right. You can't really justify a 4% move in the market every single day, which a reading over 50 would pretty much be telling you you're looking for 3 to 4% a day. And we haven't seen that. Right now, we've got the Dow Jones down 0.2%, the S&P down 0.2%, and the NASDAQ down, rather higher. NASDAQ is higher by about 0.5%. So those kind of numbers, you don't get a VIX of 50 with any of that. No. All right. Let's talk, Pete, about KeyBank, because Scotiabank, which I bet you could guess where it's based, folks, up in Canada, Nova Scotia. That's right, Nova Scotia-based bank. They're taking almost a 15% stake in KeyCorp. Well, that's about $2.8 billion, and that really helped KeyCorp moved to the upside as soon as that deal was announced, Pete. So KEY, unusual activity. We've had it a couple times this year, but no, unfortunately, nothing that would have clued us into this one. But it's certainly a nice move for shareholders of that bank.
Yeah, hit 52-week highs today, John. Over $17. This thing has been between 9.5 and call it $17 at least as of today. 23 million shares trading in the first 90 minutes of the day. That's about 2 times a full day. So in the first 90 minutes, just very, very active. What they're looking for are board seats. They're also looking to give a nice capital position for KeyBank. I think that's, or KeyCorp, they call themselves. I think all of this sounds great. This is really interesting because it wasn't too long ago, even this year, where people were talking about some of these regionals and some of the fierce, scared folks who were running from these. I think they're starting to get a little bit more comfortable. Clearly, this is a great example of that. And the recapitalization, that gives them a great opportunity for the future.
It sure does. And banks, there aren't a lot of banks that are moving to the upside with rates coming down, folks. Mm-hmm. So always be aware of that the fact that Scotiabank is making a move on these guys is rather interesting at this stage in the game. Mm-hmm. All right, let's talk about Starbucks, Pete. It's languished near its 52-week low for a long time. And One firm came in a couple weeks ago, Elliott Management, and a new firm, Starboard Activist Investor Group, is coming in now. And that's why it's getting off the schneid, as they say, Pete. It's getting off the schneid a little, but not a lot. I mean, it's still in the 70s. This is a far cry from where the 52-week high is, up at 107. So 77.50. Yeah, you got a lot of work to do to get back to over 100.
Yeah, down about almost 20%, call it, John, in the first half of the year. They have struggled. They've struggled in just about every way. And you kind of wondered when this was going to happen for Starbucks. And obviously, one of the other issues is they were expecting so much from China. Well, that has dropped back because of the struggles that they've got over there as well. I'll tell you what, John, when you look at some of the numbers over there, though, they just look terrible. This stock is up $3 just to get to $78 a share. And you were just talking about 52-week high. It was earlier this year at 107. So it's definitely something where there's weakness in the earnings. There's weakness in the sales. There's weakness in the profits as well. Some of those margins not looking as they once did not long ago. I think that this is one of those where you've got to stay away for a while until we start to see the economy actually recover more, John. I think Starbucks is one of those where do you really want to go and pay $5.50 for a coffee? Or in my opinion, you're buying a shake. But either way, when you're going out there for $5.50, I'm not sure that folks are really wanting to do that when they know they can brew their coffee at home if they're making that. And I think that's one of the reasons why they're struggling is because of the economy and where they want to spend their money. And Starbucks is not the place.
I'll throw a couple others in there to Pete's negatives. I'll say the input costs to coffee have gone up like this, both milk and coffee beans themselves. Then you've got, Pete, what's going on with the employment costs, which have gone through the roof. I mean, out in California, it's $22 an hour, folks. There aren't a lot of fast foods. And yes, Starbucks, I am putting them in fast food category. There aren't a lot of fast foods that can deal with that very effectively, Pete. You've got to get less employees to do more work, or it's just going to eat into your profits if you have any. They still have profits. But then I'll throw this one out, Pete. With Ozempic, a lot of the people that would have been buying those big shakes that you're talking about, because I agree, it ain't coffee. Not when you do a mocha this and that and, throw a bunch of whipped cream into it and all the rest. Ozempic makes people not want to eat as much and or drink as much. So this is yet another headwind for them, just like it is for other fast food companies. So I'd say Starbucks, too expensive, employment, too expensive, and Ozempic. All right, let's talk about gold, Pete, like Yukon Cornelius kind of gold, Barrick gold. This one's up 6%. Earnings spectacular. They reached $3.16 billion in sales. Much better than expectations. They produced almost 1 million ounces of gold, 948,000 ounces, I guess, Pete. So a spectacular second quarter for Barrick, which the symbol is gold, G-O-L-D.
Yeah, and actual gold has been on an absolute tear, John. It's finally really breaking out. It's pressed over 2,400 multiple times, held over there, pulled back a little bit, held over there, pulled back a little bit. We're fast approaching 2,500 now for the actual price of gold itself, and Barrick is crushing it. You were talking about that. When you look at some of the expectations that were out there, they beat it on the earnings. They slammed it on the earnings. They slammed it again on the revenue. The price of gold going up is obviously going to be very good, especially when your production went up as well. Cash flow, it's only up 53%. There's a lot of good things coming out of this one. I don't know that it's done. And believe it or not, it's not even at the 52-week highs. So I think given that, this one, as much as it's run already, there might be a little bit more fuel left in the tank to go a little bit higher, maybe establish a new 52-week high, John.
It could. And if it does, Pete, that really bodes well for them going forward. I think they will, just like gold, as you mentioned, breaking out. They are breaking out. And will probably trade higher over the next coming months. All right, let's talk a little bit about Monday.com. Now, some of you are going to think, oh, it's like Tuesday.com. No, it's not.
No, it's not.
This is cloud-based applications, software applications, and so forth. So what do? Well, they put up some pretty strong Q2 results. Full year revenue outlook also very strong. Revenue was up 34% year over year, Pete. You show me a company that's putting up numbers like that, that's not brand new, because this one is not brand new, and I'll say this is setting the table for a really nice rally, which it is, rallying very nicely today. Non-GAAP EPS was up 129%. Fabulous report for MNDY today.
Yeah, if you want to crush it, they crushed it, John, and they really did in every single category. When you talk about customer retention, you got larger customers coming in as well. They got shorts of about 5 to 6%. They're getting squeezed. 52-week highs is what they're hitting today. That's a big number. When the revenue is up 34% year over year, and you've got a guidance that sounds great, there's only one thing that makes me have a little bit of hesitation on this one, John. I loved everything about it. The PE, on the other hand, the forward PE is a 96. So just keep an eye on that. That means they are going to have to really continue to crush it after crushing it. And maybe they will, because when you talk about retention and when you talk about bigger customers coming in, that certainly could serve them very, very well. I just want to warn people, this thing's not trading at like a 20 PE or a 30. This is up there towards 100 right now on the forward side. So forward looking, very interesting. But I sure do like what they did. They did everything right. They deserve to be a 52-week high.
Yeah, it's a very interesting company, folks, at $250 plus a share. You look at it in 22, it was $100 a share. So it's made a nice 2-year rally here, but it's still well off the 21 highs, which were pushing closer to 400 back then. So does it have room? If people believe in it and they keep signing up customers like they have been, yes, it's got room.
Yeah.
All right, Pete. What do you got for our sports today, your Red Zone Sports?
Yeah, well, we got over the Olympic hump, right? We've been watching this. It's been actually really well done, I think. And for me, I agree with one of my broadcast partners over at WCCO yesterday, who we were talking about the Olympics and how great it's been, and it's now over, but it's been phenomenal. The ratings were really good, a really good bounce back. Obviously, you go back to Tokyo, there was a lot of issues going on out there, which is why that was not a really well-watched Olympics. But I like the idea, which my partner was talking about, John. He was saying, you know what? It should be in Europe. It should be maybe in China, maybe somewhere. But, next time they go around 2028, they're going to be in LA. And that'll be fine. But there's just something about Paris with all the different things that are going on there and the rivers and obviously all the different sightseeing things that people want to see. I just thought it was really well done. I was worried for them, to be honest with you. I was worried about the issues they had with water. I was worried about obviously some of the stuff that was going on with some of the trains before it and all the rest of it. But it went off really, really well. I just wanted to ask you this, John. Is there one moment, or it could be more than a moment? I got one that's a moment. But is there one moment where you said, you know what? That's the best thing I've seen at the Olympics yet. And it could be anything. I'll give you mine real quick.
Okay.
Sha'Carri Richardson. She's running the 4x100 relay. She is the greatest, cutest little thing you could ever imagine. I mean, she's cute on how she talks and she's ripped out of her mind. John, she comes in and she's just about to the finish line, probably 10 meters from it. And a long pause, look to the right, just to look at the rest of the squad that's chasing her. She had to catch up to them, by the way. The U.S. was down before that fourth handoff, and she just made an absolute third handoff. She did an unbelievable job, but I loved that expression on her face when she just looked over, kind of had that pause like, we got you, and then just went right through it. And they might even have had to set a record. There were so many records in track and field this year that were broken. It just shows you how athletic these people are, most of them in the USA, by the way.
Yeah, fantastic. By medal count and so forth, certainly a great Olympics for us, Pete, for the USA. I'll pick two. I know you said pick an Olympic moment. Right. I'm going to say Sydney McLaughlin-Levrone, or I believe that's how she pronounces it. Might be Levrone. But I loved her. I think she's just a fabulous athlete, a great Christian athlete, which I also loved, I must say, Pete.
Yep.
But, she set a world record in the 400 hurdles. The woman just ran away from everyone. No one was close.
No.
So that was pretty spectacular. And I'm going to say, Pete, that the woman from the Netherlands in the women's marathon, Hassan, I think is her last name, some woman from Ethiopia in the final 200 meters or so, Pete, she thought she was a race car. She was trying to box her out. I mean, there are no lanes. You're just, it's basically a street at that point, right? It's, I'll say 25 feet wide. She tries to pass her on the outside, but the woman moves to the outside. She cuts to the inside. The woman ran her into the crowd, Pete. Freaking bumped her into the crowd. I mean, screw her. I don't know what happened in terms of silver. I would have taken the silver from her. I would have disqualified her on that because it was such an unsportsmanlike move.
Yeah.
I mean, again, track and field, if they're fighting for that inside position, I get it. If you're running and it's a 25-foot wide thing to the finish line and you decide that you're going to try to bump this person out to your left, I think that's complete horseshit. So I think she was terrible, that woman from Ethiopia, but I was really happy for the woman from the Netherlands. And, thumbs up to her. I loved the way I saw her as she was coming in the final mile, Pete. They kicked and they tried to get away from her, and she stayed right with them. And when they didn't get away, you knew that they spent themselves too soon, and she still had her finishing kick.
Yeah.
And then she used it and dusted that woman. So I was happy about that one, I must say.
Yeah, I can't blame you. I didn't see that one, actually. That was one of the I saw almost every single part of track and field particularly, but a lot of I even saw the breaking, the newest thing, the breakdancing thing. But I know. I'm done. I'm not going to say a word about that. All right. Let's jump to college football, John. And we might even have a picture we might put up. But in any case, I think that the final national championship game, I just thought it would be fun to do something really stupid, which is to try to predict who's going to be the final two teams. That's ridiculous right now. We've not seen a single team play. They don't start play until next week, but we're looking forward to that. There you go. There you get a chance to see where the bettors are as far as some of these various teams. I'm going to go off script, though, John, because my final two teams are going to both come from the SEC, potentially. I'm looking at Ole Miss and Georgia. And I will tell you, the reason I have Ole Miss in there is you and I have talked about the transfer portal, all the different changes in college football, college sports. You've got, all the NIL money and all the rest of it. But the transfer portal, do you know what school was number one as far as what they got athletically? Ole Miss. And he was my ball boy, by the way, back in the day, the head coach. And his father was a linebacker coach of me when I was at the Minnesota Vikings. Unbelievable. I think this kid has done a really, really incredible job throughout his career, but particularly at Ole Miss. He has done a lot more than that, and they are incredibly competitive at the national level every single year. And they are in the SEC, which is awfully tough. But, they had two losses last year, Bama and Georgia. And Georgia had one loss last year. That was to Bama. So I don't think Bama's going to be the same Bama that we've been used to. It's going to be different just because different coach, and I think that does change things a little bit. They still have all the talent in the world. You look at these two quarterbacks, though, John. Jackson Dart he had 23 touchdowns, 5 interceptions last year. Carson Beck, who's a big stud who plays for Georgia, 24 touchdowns, 6 interceptions. Almost mirror images of one another. So when I look at this and I look at what Ole Miss did last year, I think they're even better this year. I think this gets pretty damned interesting, and potentially they could get there because of all the new rules and everything that's going on and more teams in this whole race for the championship. It might make it pretty damn interesting for Ole Miss because I think that those guys are at this level now, right there with Alabama and Georgia and Ohio State and Texas.
Well, I don't disagree with those two picks, Pete. So obviously the odds-on favorite is Georgia right now.
Yeah.
So you didn't go out on a limb there, but you are going out with the Ole Miss pick. And Lane Kiffin is a phenom. And I'm sure his dad, looking down from heaven, your old linebacker coach, Monty Kiffin, fantastic guy. Gruff, but fantastic guy. Brilliant defensive coach. I'm going to say, Pete, that Ohio State has a NIL that would rival NFL.
That's true.
They've got more kids. I don't know if the NIL at Ohio State is over 30 mil or something like that, Pete. They have every top kid and paying them well. So I know when you look at Texas, you see Ferraris and Lambos and things like that, because you give a 18-year-old kid $3 million. What do you think's going to happen, folks? But Texas is great. I think Ohio State, Pete, if you're going to give me two, since you got two,
sure,
I'm going to say Ohio State. And believe it or not, I'm going to skip over Texas and go to Oregon. I'm going to say Ohio State and Oregon. And by the way, they both play the 7th. I think it's the 7th game of the year. So I cannot wait for that game. I think that's going to be one of the marquee games of the year. And I'm going to say whoever wins that one wins it all.
I'll tell you this. I love that pick too, because I think that's a little off of a lot of people as well. Not Ohio State maybe, but maybe Oregon. And Oregon lost their quarterback. But that is one of the best coaches in all of college football out there at Oregon. I can promise you that. So that makes it pretty daggone interesting. And Ohio State, to your point, that NIL money, John, he came out and he said, look, to be competitive and to be Ohio State, we need at least 25 to 30 million. 2 days later, what do they got? 25 or 30 million. It's unbelievable. It's unreal.
Well, remember, folks, you got to follow the. Wait. You got to. It's not an option. It is not an option to trade options. And we can even show you how to gamble with options if that's what you want to do. But if you want to take your risk down, this is the way to do it. Options. If you want leverage, this is the smarter way to do it with options. Check it out. You can go to itsnotanoption.com. And by the way, Pete, I think that coach at Oregon, I think of him every day when I'm working out because he always tells the players, give me 2 more. Give me 2 more. So when I'm on my last set and you're hurting, I always think in my head, his quote, give me 2 more. And most days I can get it. Some days I only get 1. But other days, because I'm not working with a spotter, because I need to say, hey, I need to speak better Spanish than I speak. So if I'm under that bar, I need to have somebody right there on top if I'm going for that second one sometimes. But I always think of that, give me 2. Just give me 2 more. Whoever your competition is, they're doing it. Give me 2 more. And those players play like that at Oregon. It's amazing. And you got Phil Knight's money, which might be the only money behind Ohio State's money. All right. Well, folks, we appreciate you joining us. We will be back tomorrow with another Rebels Edge at 1 p.m. Eastern Time. Stay tuned for that. See you then.